welcome everybody. We're joined today by the fabulous team of 1inch, Tanner and Sasha. Thank you for joining us. Today is a great day. I've been looking forward to this day for a long time. I'm a big user of 1inch. Um, and we're excited to have, I guess, upgraded Phantom to Sonic and have 1inch support that upgrade and essentially swap out the networks. And now we have, some of the best aggregation in the industry currently live on Sonic. So thanks. Tanner and Sasha, feel free to introduce yourselves, your position, and what you've been working on.
Nice. I give a word to Tanner.
Okay, yeah, happy to be here. I'm excited to be deploying on Sonic and joining into the wider ecosystems of the EVM and crypto space. My name is Tanner. I am a developer relations engineer at 1inch. So I do kind of a hybrid technical side as well as interfacing with our partners and anybody who's integrating with us at a technical level.
Cool.
Yeah, GM. I'm Sasha. I'm heading BD with 1inch already for a year with a beautiful team. Happy to cover all questions related to business development, growth, and community relations. So happy to be here and glad to be a part of Sonic ecosystem.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining. I think we'll kick it off by just giving a little bit of context. Like, I think that there are a lot of aggregators out there. Arguably 1inch is one of the more established and older ones. But can you just walk us through like what sets 1inch apart from the rest, aside from having pretty much market domination? I think I might be wrong, but I did read an article that said that you guys just regained like 60 or 80% of aggregation and like all of crypto. So what sets you guys apart? Like, what is it? The tech? Is it the community? Is it the founders? Is it the brand? Like, how have you guys gotten to the point of being just such a aggregation powerhouse?
It's a very good question, and maybe Tanner, if you don't mind, I can start. Then you can maybe add some technicalities.
Sure, yeah.
Coming back to your question, I believe we've been quite very first, basically, aggregation solution on the market. And the other thing is that we're always trying to think ahead and improving our tech. So we're bringing the innovations faster than basically the industry needs sometimes. So basically coming back to our fusion and intent-based swaps, we were very first who basically designed and deliver it on the market. This is one thing. And another side, basically we are a community-driven project. We've built the hackathon, and we're trying to adapt and deliver the solutions that community needs. And that's why I believe where the match happens, and that's why they are most likely using us. And thanks to them, we're having these big volumes and market share. So this is my thought. I don't know, Tanner.
Yeah, I mean, we just have a team and founders who are always trying to be visionaries and always trying to improve. So we started with our aggregator back in 2019, I think, and now we're on version 6.1 of just that. So we've launched intent swaps, cross-chain swaps, all these different products, but we're still improving the base aggregator as well. So it's the desire to never stop improving and never get complacent with our market share. And yeah, we managed to pull that off and continue to grow.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I think a lot of projects in this space, they seem to like have their time to shine and then it will eventually fade out. Like, fortunately for Phantom, Sonic, we've been pretty lucky and have like that loyal community to like kind of ride it out with us through thick and thin. And I think that 1inch is one of those, like, I'd say like legacy protocols or legacy teams that has like rode through like the best moments and the worst moments of just like macro, micro, the whole market, everything. And I think like the teams like 1inch that are willing to like innovate in terms of making overall user experience better, it pays off. And I think that people notice it. And it just happens to be that like when you have a product that has a very smooth UX, like let's say your app has a really good UX, right? Before, let's say 2-3 years ago, there used to be a huge difference where your front end can be like fully optimized. You could have the best application, but maybe the chain that you're on isn't the best. And I mean, not to name any chains, but I'm sure you've experienced this where like every deployment of 1inch on every single chain, it depends. on like the actual tech of the chain too, right? To see like, are things being executed? Is the finality strong? What is the like, how is the quality of the RPCs, etc. So I'm pretty interested to see, being that as we speak right now, Sonic is the fastest EVM layer 1 in terms of like every metric. So I think like we're at around like 300 millisecond block time, fully decentralized. Users have a really great experience like using regular applications. And I'm curious, like, how does finality improve the user experience for like for doing these types of swaps? Now, if you're using Intense or like RFQ model or something, like, does the finality of the chain still play a big role in getting like the optimal pricing for a swap? What's your input on that?
Well, so I think on Sonic we launched both our traditional aggregator and intent swaps. So we'll start with just like the traditional aggregator, right, where you're posting transactions to the mempool and then they get mined, and the liquidity comes from AMMs from various locations on the chain. The speed helps a lot there with from a couple angles. Like arbitrage is faster, right? So pools are going to get balanced out quicker. You're going to have less time for MEV searchers to find ways to abuse transactions and sandwich users and things like that. Yeah. So they have to be even faster to try to extract value out of these trades. And congestion just becomes less and less of a problem, right? So Ethereum was famous for having crazy congestion fees, which just effectively led to less efficient swaps because you're, paying some percentage of the value of your swap just to get the transaction posted on chain. So I think across those three things, at least in the traditional aggregator space or AMM space, they all massively benefit from higher throughput chains. So I think overall the UX can only improve.
I wonder, like, how is technically I'd assume that like if you have a chain that has strong fast finality and the pricing is cheaper, usually what my experience has been with aggregators is like you'll see a difference of the route of, like, if you're comparing, let's say, 2 or 3 aggregators, mostly because of like the gas that's associated with like how gas intensive is the routing to get the better price, and is it net positive or net negative, because sometimes it might have like a super efficient route to go, but then by the time that swap is executed, the cost saved on the token value it's like insignificant compared to the gas, right? Like that's like the ultimate issue. So I'm assuming that on a low cost, high finality chain, like that almost doesn't exist anymore, because like even if you are getting really, really fast execution with like minimal room for MEV, that you're actually getting even better pricing because the routes are just super cheap.
Yeah, you're spot on. Part of our algorithm is to factor in gas costs, right? And you're totally right, where when gas costs are really high, it was just better to go to Uniswap, right? Like as soon as you got to 2 DEXs, 3 DEXs, that's an extra, literally it was like $25 per DEX you were touching, right? So when gas is basically free and that actual transaction is a matter of cents, then yeah, we can go as complicated as we need to touch all those different liquidity pools in a single swap. So yeah.
Speaking of that, I'm curious. We're seeing the rise of more like clubs. What are your thoughts on that? And I know not all aggregators integrate clubs, but from what we've seen, like the high throughput of a chain and like having this really, really, really efficient order book, does it make the aggregation easier for like 1inch? Is it integrated with clubs on other chains? Like what's the consensus on that?
Yeah, so we have our own order book built at 1inch. Is called Limit Order Protocol. There's a lot of different protocols that integrate with that, and that gets routed into our aggregator. So yes, with clubs getting bigger, that definitely leads to better price performance in our system as well. Because really just more broadly, right? Like the better clubs get, which like Hyperliquid kind of proved that they're finally here to stay. The better clubs get, the more traditional finance is going to start providing liquidity on these platforms, right? So we're actually probably seeing, potentially exponential growth in the total liquidity sitting on these chains as clubs kind of like bring in a whole new cohort of users. So I think from that aspect, that helps us just because liquidity is going up, more protocols are launching. And again, that all leads back to users getting less price impact, less slippage, and better rates.
Yeah, there's a club on Sonic that it's funny. I read a lot on Twitter, like these people touting like testnet clobs and stuff, and it's like you can actually use a high throughput clob right now on Sonic. It's called Express without the E. So XPRESS, expressprotocol.com. And like they've done they do really good volume. Like clobs are doing with $750,000 in TVL, they're doing around $4 million in volume a day. I feel like that's pretty good. And their cumulative trading volume year to date is like it's around $466 million. So like we are seeing an increase in clobs. So I don't know, maybe that's something we can talk about on the side and see if they can get integrated into 1inch or something. That would be awesome. But yeah, it's just something there's something I wanted to touch on because it is like it's a trend, but a lot of the trend that you see is spoken about theoretically, like, oh, our L2 is launching, it's going to have the fastest finality for clobs, and like they're in testnet, and then another chain's in testnet, and another chain's in testnet. But actually on Sonic, like we actually have the fastest performing clob in the entire market. It's just no one really knows about it yet because it's small. But we're working on it with that team, and they're a great team helping them grow.
With Express, is that all on chain?
Yeah.
Yes. That's one of the really cool things about clobs now is, the entire thing is on chain. It's all verifiable. It's all readable. And I think that's one of the reasons that it's starting to pick up speed again, finally.
Yeah, I mean, for them, they had like a cap of like a $500,000 liquidity pool. They just increased it to like $1 million. I like them. I like Express Team and a lot of the other teams on Sonic because like they're taking their time and they're making sure that they are essentially like trying to build the best protocol and not just like go to market fast and just like fuck it and just ship. It's like, let's take our time. Let's like set limits so that we're not like taking in too much liquidity and kind of being responsible about it. So I always praise any team that's willing to be really responsible in like the launch phase.
Yeah.
So let's see, what's my next question? I did have a couple of questions lined up. So I guess this kind of piggybacks off a question asked before. So how are you able to get such low pricing? Like historically, other aggregators I've used, like let's say Odos or OpenOcean or Kyber Swap, Paraswap, like they all have good pricing, but somehow like you guys always have the best pricing. Is it because you're using like this hybrid model of getting like off-chain intents? Is that paired in with on like is it if I'm doing a swap, is there a hybrid version where like some of it's being routed through a lower barrier of entry via intents from a centralized exchange, or is it that it's all on chain, or is it like how does it split?
I think yeah, I just want to I believe that about the Pathfinder algorithm, I believe you are the better speaker. But one thing that I want to mention that I learned from the smart contract developer team is that they not only basically trying to optimize our own algorithms, they all also optimizing the smart contracts of the other liquidity sources that we are using, and that's how we basically there is a couple of cases. I won't name the exact liquidity sources, but for example, if you go directly to this liquidity source and do the swap, then basically go to 1inch and do the same swap with our aggregation router, you will have even better rates because our team always optimizing even the smart contract, basically the smart the source that we are aggregating. So this is one thing that I want to mention, but I believe that the Pathfinder is.
So you're saying basically the contracts that you use to aggregate are essentially like tailor made to work very well with the AMM LP, like the factory or whatever, like the router or whatever they have deployed. Is that why?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I didn't know that.
Tanner is the dev, he's the technical.
Yeah. What Sasha said is totally right. So I mean, if you look at Uniswap v3, right? They deploy a bulletproof router, bulletproof pool, smart contracts, and then that's it, right? That is the cost of interacting with Uniswap v3, right? Well, with our routers, we upgrade them very slowly over time. I think we're on our router v6 right now, right? And so each time we build these router contracts, we do 7, 8 different audits on them to make sure they're also bulletproof, but we have that ability to keep upgrading them over time. So what Sasha was just explaining, right, is our router v6, it knows exactly how to interact with all of the Uniswap v3 pools, right? So it does not actually need to go through the router. It just goes to the pools directly and talks to them. So we have just super optimized that interaction point. We skip the router entirely and go to the pools.
So you're using your own router
Yeah, exactly. So like everything settles on the 1-inch router, right? You can just, even though they're like totally different systems, at the end of the day, when you're posting this transaction on chain, you're going to our router similarly to how you go to the Uniswap router as kind of your entry point to that whole ecosystem.
I
And
did
so
not know
our
that.
router just kind of like optimized all of that logic. So if a user goes to the Uniswap contract and makes a trade, and then they do that exact same trade on 1-inch, it's actually cheaper, even though there's that one extra step.
What's the process nowadays for like okay, like let's say Sonic, for example, like obviously there's a decent amount of work like involved, because I'll give you an example. Like Shadow is like like one of the main liquidity sources on Sonic, but Shadow uses like a modified V3 Uniswap V3. So when you come to a new ecosystem, what are you doing? Are you typically saying like, okay, first let's get all the vanilla Uni V3, Uni V2 curve balancer, like what algebra, like what are the go-to a liquidity sources that you guys go to that are like the battle tested ones? And then beyond that, how does it work when you're integrating newer modified ones?
Okay, so you're saying when we are going to a new chain, how do we optimize
Yeah.
where we're going to? Okay. Yeah, I mean, so first thing we're going to start off is with all the major forks, right? Because at the end of the day, like most AMMs are forks of popular protocols, right? Like it's a curve fork, it's a uni fork, right? Like there's maybe like 5 main ANM protocols that everyone kind of forks off of. So we get those, the main forks, and then we get all the ones that fork those main forks kind of for free. Right? Like,
Yeah.
it's like we do have to do some modifications, right? But like, yeah, it's mostly, it's pretty cheap on our side. But for Uniswap and maybe a couple others is where we've really gone in to optimize, because if you look at like, I think like Uni V3 through their router is like 205,000 gas, and the same swap on ours is like 175,000 gas on Ethereum. So it's a small amount, right? Which was much more relevant when gas costs were high. So I don't know, obviously we'd look at like the cost benefit before we'd even like consider kind of rewriting routers.
Of course.
Back when we did that for Uni V3, it was obviously a much higher return to do that. So that is certainly not standard for us by any means.
One of the things that I've heard as of recently, within the past couple of weeks, I guess it'd be a complaint, but the complaint that I've heard from just the industry, just in general, is that like Uni V4 hooks are cool, but every hook needs to get integrated into an aggregator separately. Is that true?
Oh, that's a good question. I have not looked into that integration step for hooks at all yet, so I can't speak to that.
Okay, I had heard that, and that's why I was hearing people saying like, it's a little bit complicated, because like if you want to essentially like encourage innovation, it's amazing. I think like you could probably do a lot of things with hooks, but it's like when it comes to an aggregator, it's like, hey, there's a new hook. Hey, there's a new hook. Hey, there's a new hook. And then it just gets to the point where it's like, okay, like this is kind of becoming redundant at this point, because how much volume is really getting routed through these hooks in the first place. But we don't have on Sonic, we don't have Uni before. I'm still trying to get Uniswap Labs to deploy. So when and if that ever happens, I'm actively on it, and I ping them all the time. So my passive persistent harassment has worked pretty well with other integrations, so hoping it will work with Uniswap as well. Okay, so question. Can you explain a little bit about like what is Fusion? Is Fusion just the intense side, or Fusion Plus?
Sasha, you want to go?
I can start, but basically, the thing that I want to also mention when we talked about the basically better rates, it's also by improving the user experience. And Fusion is basically this improvement of the user experience by basically bringing the liquidity not only from the decentralized resources, but also from centralized or any other liquidity sources through the basically third party, which we call resolvers. So basically within Fusion, we are not only relying to our Pathfinder algorithm, we have in this basically different flow of executing the swaps. And it works on basically on the way where I will be explaining for the dummies, and then Danner will be explaining for basically those who wants to have more technicality. So when you want to swap one token to another, for example, on the Sonic chain, I am as a user just putting my basically order, and then there is a resolvers who are fighting to to basically execute this order through the Dutch auction. And then when the magic happens, they basically doing this execution by basically getting the liquidity wherever they prefer.
Okay.
And then basically the magic happens.
So don't kill me, but is Fusion Plus is kind of similar to like a cow swap model?
Fusion Plus is a cross-chain solution.
Okay.
Yes, it's quite similar, but in the case of a co-swap, they are using a little bit of different way on basically how to say finding the solvers.
Got it. Okay.
Here, I believe Tanner can provide more deeper answer.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I mean, personally, like historically, I'm for like stablecoin swaps. I've always found cow swap to be pretty good, but as of lately, I've just been having weird experiences with cow swap. Like the pricing is not correct. Like after I do the transaction, like it gives an estimate, and then when it's done, it's like pretty off.
Try Fusion and let us know.
I will. I mean, I'm like, how do I say? I'm like aggregator agnostic. Like I just try and I also I'm not like a big user of like, I know some people prefer to use like a DeFi Llama, like the meta aggregator, which I guess that's fine. But I like to just go to like I don't know, going to like an aggregator front end reminds me of like 2021 and just like using an app.
Right.
If I'm not using the 1-inch front end or any other aggregator front end, what I do use personally, like most frequently, is I use the Robbie like swap like in the wallet. I am victim to paying the fees in the wallet swap because it's just so much faster, and like if I'm using mobile, it's also easier. And then also 1-inch is pretty commonly used on Li-Fi or Leafy, some people call it.
You most probably in Rabi wallet, you most probably swap with us. This is another beautiful thing that we're having is a B2B solution, which is developer portal. So
we should have a chat about that with I'll ping the Robbie team and ask them to also integrate 1-inch, because right now there's another aggregator, but having more aggregators the better, I think.
Honestly, I believe they're already done.
Really?
I believe that's what I'm saying, that when you swap in I believe there is a
Okay, cool. I'll definitely check in on it. Yeah.
But please provide them any feedback is always good for
I'm a big fan.
I want them to keep us more.
Yeah, Robbie wallet is my favorite wallet, and it's hands down the best EVM wallet. I always tell people
just after 1-inch wallet.
I can't say because I've never used 1-inch wallet myself, so I can't comment on it. But I will say that I always tell people that using MetaMask is driving like an old Toyota, and using Robbie is like driving like a Bentley. It's just like there's so many features. It's like it's so obvious to me. Like, it just makes life so much easier on Sonic, and the overall experience of using Sonic as a network on Robbie is like so smooth.
Yeah, really nice. And the thing is that like when it comes to, you mentioned that what is the difference between co-swap, but in 1-inch case you also have another option, which is Fusion Plus. And Fusion Plus is the cross-chain solution. And again, you mentioned that you are aggregator agnostic, but Fusion Plus is chain agnostic. So basically it's a cross-chain solution that we are not using any bridges inside. So this is also like kind of more safe in terms of, and more secure. And now it's chain agnostic, and a part of just Sonic, you can also do it on L1s like Solana.
So does chain agnostic mean you're saying the Fusion Plus is chain agnostic for liquidity sources?
Yeah, thanks to our basically resolvers who can basically provide this liquidity from any network.
So like, let's say in theory, I'm on a chain that has like very low USDC, USDT liquidity, and I'm using Fusion Plus and it's supported, but there's a shit ton of USDT, USDC liquidity on another chain. It's essentially like using the liquidity from another chain to be able to complete the transaction on the low liquidity chain.
Most probably yes, but I believe Tanner will give you the proper answer, so I won't lie.
So the short answer is effectively yes. The one critical component is you need that resolver to be on the chain with low liquidity.
Yeah.
As long as the resolver is there and they see the potential for volume there, they will facilitate that. But they're kind of allocating capital because we're not actually a bridge, like Sasha just said.
Yeah.
Resolvers that are willing to either do these cross-chain transactions at the time of filling these orders for
They're
users.
putting up their own money, the resolvers, right?
Right. Or they just, like you said, keep liquidity on both chains, right?
Yeah.
So if they keep, USDT on one, USDC on the other, now they can do these swaps for users with that particular pair.
So
right?
it's like they're basically facilitating like private bridging with a fee.
Yes, without actually doing a bridge, right? They're just kind of facilitating the same outcome, but there's no actual bridge risk or anything, right? It's
just, I guess that's most similar to like Chainlink, like CCTP. I mean, Circle CCTP, because on Circle CCTP, it's basically like a burn and mint, like an order book swap or a balance sheet swap, like where if you're bridging from like Sonic has native USDC. So if I'm bridging $100 million from Sonic over to Avalanche, they're basically just facilitating it behind the scenes. There's no bridging. They're actually just like facilitating it in their own right. That's actually brings me to a question. Like, are you guys integrated with CCTP V2?
Yeah, V2. Yeah, we just did it, and this is what this is very good that you mentioned this, because this is it's not even like similar. It's basically the CCTP with V2 is basically improvement for especially resolvers who want to basically rebalance their liquidity once they solve in basically the orders. So that's the thing. We are on our side, so with our resolver doing this stuff, and there is also other options like with the layer 0. They just also, I believe, release the similar feature, but we now betting on the CCTP V4 or V2. Sorry, hopefully V4 will be soon done.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it. I guess I have maybe 2 more questions, and then we can wrap it
Can I clarify
up.
one thing about the bridging?
Yeah, go ahead.
So one really cool thing about Fusion Plus for Sonic users is you don't actually have to trust the counterparties that are facilitating these transitions of assets between chains. It's actually done with a technology called hashed time lock contracts. And we kind of use these escrow contracts that use secrets and cryptography to make sure that the outcome you want is guaranteed to happen or it will revert. So this was kind of the crux of our whole design, and something that we're really proud of is if the assets don't eventually land in the user's wallet on Sonic, if they're bridging over to Sonic or on wherever they're going from Sonic back to any other chain that Fusion Plus supports, the funds will always go back to the user. It's kind of a complicated mechanism that I won't go through all the details now unless you really want me to. But basically what happens is there are escrow contracts on each chain, and these funds are locked in these escrow contracts with a secret that is only known to the user. So the Sonic user would be holding on this secret in their browser. And when they actually do these transactions and these funds are going to the other chains, the funds cannot be unlocked to the counterparty until the user submits that secret and publishes it for them to use. So it's a pretty cool mechanism, which takes a little bit of time to explain, but it's a pretty cool
mechanism. I understand exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool mechanism where if this outcome does not happen within the defined amount of time, which I don't know the exact number, but let's just say it's between 5 and 10 minutes, then the only thing that can happen is the
refund. Yeah, actually that's amazing, because I've had this problem before, like many times, where essentially I don't want to say who it is, but I'll say it's a bridge provider. I can say that, where like I've gotten a quote, right? Like, let's say I was doing some type of swap and I get a quote, and then like the swap never happens. And then like 30 minutes later, the swap is executed and the price is shit. And I'm like, what happened? Like, how did it change? So effectively what you're saying is that you guys have made like a, I don't want to call it a fraud proof, but I'd say like, it's kind of like a commitment on price, right? So like if it's not executed in a certain amount of time, like it'll just get reverted, because effectively you're not getting what you signed up for and the deal is bad. Is that what it is?
Yeah. I mean, the price can go down a little bit because behind the scenes,
I'm talking about like 10-20% or something crazy.
No. That wouldn't happen. But like behind the scenes, there's a Dutch auction mechanism going on where basically we're looking for some resolver to accept the swap rate. Once the swap rate is accepted, right? Like once you see your transactions pending and you've seen like that the funds start to move, it will either happen at that rate or it won't happen. There's no variance.
What's the benefit for the resolver? Are they getting a small piece of the pie?
What they do is they take a rate that is covering whatever they consider worth it for their time. So like if you're doing USDC to USDT across 2 chains, the resolver probably will not do it at perfectly 1-to-1. They'll do it at like, a 0.01% advantage in their favor, right? So that's the thing, is it's a race to the bottom. Which resolver is willing to take the least amount of profit for them to say, okay, this is the rate at which I'll commit to the auction.
Is 1inch running their own resolvers, or is it all like decentralized, or
it's both?
Okay.
So we run a resolver, and we also have a system where we KYC, KYB new resolvers.
Oh, really?
Compete. Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. I did not know that. Well, it's nice that you guys allow other people to get in on it, because then if you didn't, it would be kind of very monopolized aggregation.
Yeah, it wouldn't be very marketable, and it would be objectively worse because now the competition's gone, right? So if it was just us, we'd have no reason besides good faith to give users good rates. We want it to actually be like a market.
That's fair. That's fair. So I guess that leads me into the next question, which I was chatting with you briefly before, is like, Sonic has one of I think the most unique feature as it pertains to 1inch and Sonic is the enablement of fee monetization. Like, fee monetization, some people think it's not a big deal, and that's fine if you think it's just like a gimmick or a sales point. But the reality is that for routers, for applications like 1inch, who are doing like a ton of transactions, like essentially nonstop executing trades, like, it's actually really beneficial. I think on Phantom we were running 15% fee monetization. On Sonic is 90%, and on Phantom I think one of the larger like beneficiaries of this was Odos, like an aggregator at some point. And basically it's just because so many transactions are getting pushed through, and I'm assuming since 1inch is like a household name and does a lot of aggregation as it is, that you guys would probably do pretty well with that. So I'm looking forward to seeing, like, we'll have another chat with you to make sure like all of your contracts are registered, et cetera, through like the dashboard that we have. To see like how much money that you guys can make from fee monetization. I mean, it's added up. I think to date, it's around 1.5 million tokens, which at the current token price is around like $500 to $600,000, something in that range. Which, if you think about it, like, the biggest selling point about FEM for me is like, fee monetization on Sonic is like, I think, the purest form of incentives, which is permissionless royalties. What I mean by that is, like, on Sonic, you don't need to sign a contract to get this fee monetization. You don't need to dox yourself. You don't need to go into a DAO and like ask for a grant. You don't need to go do any of the lobbying. You don't need to even like talk to anyone. You don't need to have communication with anyone from the Sonic team. You can launch a super successful protocol and rake in the fees and collect the fees on like a streaming basis, no problem. So I'm curious to see how it progresses for you guys and see like what the revenue will actually look like. But aside from that, like, what would you guys do with the money? Like, if you're hypothetically generating like $20,000 a month, which is not too far fetched, by the way, like, what $20,000 a month to 1inch is probably not a lot, but $20,000, because you guys are just so huge, right? But $20,000 to like a smaller protocol, which we see on Sonic, like, it helps them a lot. Like, they're hiring new developers, they're being able to pay for moderators, they're either using those as incentives, taking loans against them, those tokens and stables, minting LSTs, paying to teams to travel to events around the world. Like, there's so many things that could be done. What is it that you guys like would do with the funds at 1inch if you were able to like make significant revenue source from fee monetization on Sonic?
I can theorize what we'll do.
Sure.
So, like you said, like, we're a pretty big company at this point. But at the end of the day, like, if this does start to turn into revenue, that's just more motivation to give more back to the Sonic ecosystem, right? Because at the end of the day, like, we want to spend our time where we're actually going to be able to be profitable, make money. And so if there's just additional incentives at the protocol level for Sonic, then we'll just keep pushing more and more to actually get like, because I think we launched our aggregator on your chain as well, right? Where our traditional aggregators live on Sonic as well?
I believe so.
Yeah, so that would give us more motivation to, like what you said, get more AMMs integrated into our aggregator, do more optimizations around there to make sure that as other aggregators spin up on Sonic, that we're still the best choice. And so it's just a good flywheel, I believe, to come back and give more back to the ecosystem.
Yeah, I would say, and to add on that is basically we came from the hackathon, and we keep supporting the basically developers by participating in other hackathons, and basically we have this hackathon culture. And I don't know, we never mentioned, but basically Sonic was made by the internal hackathon, so basically all the team came to Dubai.
Oh, really?
Yes, we just did this through the hackathon. So we just bring all the team to Dubai for a couple of weeks, and they just make this happen by just developing this thing. So I believe, so we have some things to spend on, and uh, basically,
Yeah,
when
you can take them out to dinner. The dev team.
one of the options, why not? And
I always say that to I always say that to teams. Basically, I tell them like, you know, the beauty of it is that you can use the money for whatever you want. Like my like dream scenario is that like we like let's say we go to permissionless and there's like a team visiting and they're like, hey, we're hosting an event tonight, like paid 100% from Fee Monetization. I'll be like, that's so cool. Like that's sick. That's awesome. Like because if effectively what you're saying is that like you're royal because I gotta admit I hate the word monetization. It's just a mouthful. Essentially, it's a royalty. Like it's the same concept as if you're a YouTube creator and you're generating fees from like the advertisers or whatever. Like this, it's the same concept. So if you're able to stack up money and be able to like use it in real life and show people like we were able to pay for this stuff by actually using fee monetization, that's my favorite part would be real because you don't really get to see like if you put the money into incentives like crypto money is like it's like invisible sometimes to people, right? Like if you're saying we put $100,000 into incentives and you'd be like, okay, cool, I don't care. Like you might have made like $10 from that. Who knows proportionally. But if you say like, hey, we have this really awesome dinner, we're doing an event, please come by our event and meet the team. It's paid for by FEM. It's like, okay, it's kind of cool. But yeah, that's just my point of view on it. I'll wrap it up with saying like, what's the roadmap for 1inch? Like, what is the next like 6 to 12 months hold for you guys? Do you have anything that you guys are working on specifically? I know a lot of projects now are like pivoting towards institutional. Is that like something that you guys have ever discussed as like institutional aggregator or something like that in the US? Like this is like becoming a huge thing. Just basically in the US, everyone only cares about two things: institutions and stablecoins. So I'm curious, what is your thoughts on evolving 1inch for institutional market, and if there's anything else that you guys are working on specifically that you wanted to highlight?
Yeah, I can start from the institutional part and where we're heading in this direction. Maybe then comment on how we're gonna expand the Fusion Plus through the again hackathon culture. So in terms of the basically institutional part, I believe recently we released that we working on the product to basically allow institutions to head into DeFi world. And when I'm saying that is basically Fusion Plus, and Fusion is the MVP for those companies, and the only thing that we need to do is work on basically improving the stability of this solution, and also make it very fully compliant, because all the institutions that are really care about their compliance and basically the legal verification. So what I can right now highlight is first of all, we still DeFi native team that want to improve the tech and onboard first billion users together with our beautiful partners by providing the best DeFi experience. But at the same time, we still believe that institutional part will happen, and we working on basically legal part by verifying how and in which way we can work with this big guy. So maybe for now it's the only thing that I comment, and
Oh,
the
that's
fusion is basically we're already ready, and this is the MVP for them. And
awesome.
in the ideal world, there is a bank where like you have the part where it's fully fiat, and for example, in your, I don't know, Revolut or any other digital bank, you can also they have this solution for DeFi, and I believe it will. Hopefully, it will be 1inch.
Well, I think the thing that I've noticed over the past, like, let's say 6 months is the industry used to be so focused on interoperability, right? Like having the smoothest interoperability. But then all of a sudden, there's like every bank is going to have a stable coin. And it's like the absolute opposite of interoperability because you're like, yo, I got this Bank of America USD. Like, how do I get it? Like, it's just gonna be so ridiculous, right? So I think that like having aggregation is just going to become even more important, like when it comes to stable coins, because I do think eventually once the big boys get involved in stable coins at scale, like Circle and Tether are going to be peanuts compared to like a JP Morgan. They just announced like the JP Morgan JP Morgan dollar or something. So like those users are going to need to want to get another stable coin with a stable coin with a stable coin, and it's just going to be so many stable coins. So before we were like super focused on interoperability. Layer 0 came out, CCIP came out, and then people were like, oh nice, we've actually got like a pretty decent like interoperability situation, it's looking good. And then all of a sudden it's like no, there's going to be like 500 different stable coins from 500 different banks. So we'll see how that pans out, but I think that by the sound of it, it sounds like 1inch is well positioned for that. And yeah, I'm looking forward to what you guys are working on in the future. And if probably we'll see you guys around at some event somewhere, maybe DevCon in Argentina or 2049 in Singapore. But I've been seeing Tanner all over the world for the past like few years. So I'm sure we'll run into each other again. And Sasha, I've never met you before. I don't think I've spoken to you before, but I've never met you before. So thanks for joining. I really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you guys in person. And hopefully next time we meet, you guys are buying dinner with Fee Monetization money.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for a very good conversation. Really appreciate
Bye.
it.
Take
Thanks
care.
for having us here. Glad to be part of Sonic. So
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. Take care. See ya.
see you guys.
Bye, guys. See you.